Endless Evolution is a community engaged in the exploration of human experience. We engage with one another to understand our unique paths. We talk, we laugh, we heal, and we invite others to share this journey with us. Won't you join us? Endless Evolution.
So many humans, and where's the humanity?
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Endless Evolution. How is everyone today? Spencer,
Oh,
Aaron?
well,
Great.
doing
I'm
good.
great. I'm
Doing
good.
good. Doing
So
Doing
good.
great. I
Doing
got
good.
my two favorite guys here, man. So I'm great. I'm excited.
So, for those of you listening on Spotify or platform like that, we've got two invited guests today, Nicholas Brown and Omari Barksdale, and we'll be hearing a lot from them in just a little bit of time. But we are really diving in today to talk more about creation, as we've promised in the past, right? And to really dig into the idea of why creation matters, right? Particularly, why are we thinking about creation in these times of uncertainty, these times of stress and of terror for many, right? But creation happens to lend itself to a lot of positive growth and community connectedness. So we're going to dive in that topic today. Want to remind you all to like, subscribe, follow us, whether that's on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts, anywhere you get your podcasts. Come to you as often as we can to, again, share with you our journey of how we're endlessly evolving and trying to heal humanity together. So, really excited to have everybody to hear, and love to kick it off by just hearing from everybody a little bit about how you're coming into the space today. So, I don't know if anybody wants to start it off, but I'll share that I'm tired. I had a wonderful family wedding this weekend and got back to my house 3 o'clock today from a Friday night party, Saturday day golfing and hangout to Saturday night party, then this morning big brunch. So my voice is a little weak, and I really can't wait to lay down in my bed tonight to sleep. But full of lots of really positive, loving vibes this weekend. How are you doing, Aaron?
I'm doing well. Doing well. We were just I was just telling you all earlier about how we were keeping my little cousin over the weekend. So we had he brightened up the house a little bit. We had a 3-year-old back in the house. We hadn't had little children in the house for quite some time. So my wife and I were kind of getting reacclimated back to little kids back in the house. But other than that, yeah, great weekend, great Sunday, just spending time with family. So I'll
Yeah.
popcorn it over to. Oh, go for it.
I'm sorry.
I was gonna send it
I'm
all over
sorry,
to you.
man. You're
So
gonna
go,
send it to me anyway.
no, go for it.
No,
Go
I'm
for
doing
it.
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. If I use a weather analogy, I guess I would say partly sunny. I'm good. Getting ready to thinking about all the stuff we got to do before we leave town in a couple of days. It's been a busy Sunday. Erica just left town. Doing good though. Ready for us to sit and get a little rest, when you look forward to some rest and some quiet time. I find more and more these days. I look forward I look forward to that. So it's always good to be here. I'm excited about these there's two guests here today. Really excited and really grateful too. So yeah, I'll pass it over to my brother Nick.
Yeah, I'm doing all right. Tail end of the school year, so big push. So I am tired, but you get that last little bit of energy just to get through the last few weeks to finish strong and
Yeah,
then recharge the battery. So
yeah.
yeah, I'm hanging in there.
Good, man. Good. Oh,
Yeah, I mean, plantation houses are burning down, and
yeah.
I'm
Flame on, flame on.
space, definitely in a good space right now.
Yeah, man, we appreciate it, man. So listen, it's good to have y'all here. I just for those of you listening, wherever you're listening from, this is a pleasure for me to introduce these guys. They're really dear brothers and dear friends of mine. And when I think about the theme today on the topic of creation, I think about the individual conversations that I've had with both of them, all about transformation, evolving, creation. Always have those deep conversations, and so both of them are creators in their own right, and they spent some time creating together. We'll talk about that a little bit as well. And so neither one of them knew that the other was coming on to the show tonight. So it's a good surprise. Good to see him be surprised and it's really good to have you all, man. So welcome to the space. Um, and before I just pass it over to Aaron, um, Nick, Omari, anything you want to say to open up? I mean, I know you see each other, and I know you haven't seen each other in a while. Any words to say to each other,
Hey
or
man, it's
yeah,
always good to see my brother, man.
yeah,
You
Always.
know,
yeah,
Spencer, Nick and you know me from two different points of my personal evolution.
yes,
That's
And
right.
he's a reminder of some really great times
yeah,
that we had together out on the road. And yeah, so it's always, and then it's an honor just to be here and to meet your colleagues in action here. So,
yeah.
so yeah, I'm ready to enjoy this.
Yeah. Really good to have you. We do some creating in some other spaces as well. So it's good to have you in this one. Nick, anything?
No, it was great to see O.
Yeah,
Interestingly enough, the last time we linked up was in a creative space,
yeah,
which was an awesome experience. And, it's beautiful when, we have that bond, collaborate
yeah,
in that, because, it gives me a boost. It
yeah,
gives O a boost. It's just good energy. And it tends to come right when you need it.
yeah,
Uh, so yeah, no, it's good to see O, and he brings nothing but joy because we existed in that
yeah,
creative space
yeah.
together, and so yeah, it's nothing but love.
Yeah, man, yeah, man. I feel getting the band back together might be coming soon. Getting the band back together. Um,
He would
so
remember my poems on stage when I forgot them.
yeah.
So
Oh, they are lit too. So listen, we're gonna talk about creation. Then I'm gonna pass it to Aaron. We'll talk about creation, talk about you all's thoughts about that, what you have done, what you're doing, and all of that. And so I'll pass it over to Aaron.
Thank you, Brother Spencer. And Omari, that's a testament to how people resonate with your work. When you forget, but they remember, I love that. I love that. Um, so as we talked about this, like we started this podcast because we really wanted to create a space where folks could be listening and hear something that resonates with them, to know that they are not the only ones that may be going through a particular thing or feeling or experiencing a certain thing. In that very first episode, we talked about like the time that we're in. And I think we brought up a quote by Toni Morrison who said that this is precisely the time that artists go to work. And so since then, we've been having these conversations about creativity and how folks have, really used the skills that they have to kind of go through some of these times that we're in. And so, if I can start with Omari, just if you could just talk about a little bit what your process is for when you create.
oh man, my process is all over the place. Because I write in several different styles. And what I've noticed throughout the years is that each of those styles requires its own process. So whether I write during the night or the day, or whether I'm at home or in a hotel room, they have their own process. So the space kind of determines the process. So I might write a poem where, excuse me, even as the author, I don't know what the poem is about until I get to the eighth line.
Mm,
Or I might write a poem where I pull from my senses and I pull the color red. I see a tree. I smell grandma's pancakes cooking.
Mm,
So I hear a siren in the distance, in the distance. So, and I'll put all of those on paper and I'll look at them and look at them and look at them until a poem starts to formulate.
mm,
Right. Or I'll write what's called a persona poem in which I take on the character. It could be a character I created, a character that symbolizes something, or it could be a real historic figure. And I'll start to write from the position of that character
okay.
because when I perform it, I'm going to perform it as that person, as that character. Um,
Love that.
so, and I might make notes in the margins while I'm writing. If I'm writing by hand, or if it's on paper, on the computer, I'll drop down and drop notes at the bottom and then pull a piece of a note up here and there when I get to a part where it fits. So yeah, it's I wrote Nick and I were in Nebraska one year, 2004, and I wrote two poems, which actually were two of my more popular poems that I've used more than probably any other poems throughout the years. Zombies and Horror Girl. I had two notepads open. I was sitting on the bed like in return tables. I was writing one on one notepad and one on the other going back and forth. So I wrote those literally together.
Oh wow.
So the processes are for me are all over the place.
I, I love that. I love the way you just talked about like how the human brain works. There's no confining it when you when you have a thought that you just go where it takes you. I like that. I like that.
If I
But
can add, I really like that you pick up like you're so present that if a siren goes down the street, you're incorporating that somehow into the
yes.
experience of your creation. And I think so many times, people go thinking that creation has to be, you gotta lock yourself in a room and kind of zone into whatever you're focused on. And I love the spontaneity and the real authenticity of what you described, of really using
Absolutely.
your surroundings to
Yeah.
help create.
And it's funny you say that because I was on the plane last January coming home from Portland, and in my headphones, I'm listening to a song that I don't even remember putting on my playlist. Right. And so I was like, I was hearing it for the first time, but I had to have heard it because I put it on my playlist. But I guess for the first time, I really heard it and I started writing to it. And normally I can't write to while other people are talking or singing or whatever the case may be. But I put this thing on repeat and I wrote this poem on the plane. And I really enjoy that poem because it's written to the song. It's complimentary to the song. Um, and because I wrote it, you know, while the singing was happening, which I never had done before, I could write the jazz all day.
Hmm. Hmm.
So yes, I I enjoy when new processes pop up. I get excited about stuff like that. I'm a nerd.
I love it. Love it. So, Nicholas, I have a different question for you, but feel free if you want to jump in on that question. You can answer that question a little bit more. Thank you, Omari, for sharing your process. So, Nicholas, if you can jump in on that question, or the question I'm about to ask, and that question is, what do you think is the necessity of being a creator or creating something during the times that we're in?
Hmm. Um, well, yeah, I'll just mention a little bit about process. Is pretty easy for me. Being a DJ, first, um, and back in the time with dabbling in production, for me, it's simply just making sure I'm surrounded by music every day. So that's always listening, whether it's satellite radio, my own record collection, going on YouTube, hearing other DJs. There's not a day I'm not listening to some kind of music in some kind of way.
Yeah.
And so I'm always looking to hear something new, make some type of connection. And if I have a party coming up or an event, And now I'm in a space where I kind of can pick and choose what I want that's more in line with kind of how I view how I want to express myself musically. It's just kind of whatever I'm feeling in the moment, but always trying to make connections between past and present. And I think the necessity of that is, I feel creation or our level of creation in whatever field we're in, it's easy to do when things are going great, right? When things
Mm.
are going well. And looking back on my personal journey, there was a time, what I would call maybe my most challenging moment where I didn't do it. And what I learned coming out of that was, um, when I came out of that difficult time, I found myself creating again. But what I told myself when I thought about how I felt when I started doing it was never again would I let a challenging moment stop me from doing that, because I didn't want my creation to just be a function of when things are going well. I came to realize later that it was the process of getting back to that creative space that kind of helped pull me out of that challenge, those challenging moments. So I think the necessity of it is just for our own health, our own spirit, our own engine and motor to continue running in the face of challenges. That's why it's important to have some degree of control on creativity. I know you can't control it all from the standpoint of creation. A lot of times is spontaneous. Creation a lot of times is the vibe. It's not anything that can necessarily be manufactured per se. But I think what that means is intentionally putting yourself in spaces and places that will generate that will kind of create the conditions for creativity to happen, whether it's engaging with other peers in the space who that you bounce ideas off of, or reading about it or researching about it. But it means not removing yourself from opportunities, from creation generating opportunities. I would say that would be the key, is not going into a shell,
Yeah.
right? But kind of staying out there, staying engaged, because those are the kind of things we're going to need to come up with great ideas, to come up with things that haven't been done, thoughts that haven't been thought. Um, and then because you never know who you'll touch, and inspire them. And that hopefully creates a chain and a movement that will help to generate something, because people have a lot of questions right now,
Right.
right, about what's going on, and not a whole lot of answers. And it's when you don't have answers that it's key for creation to be present, because that's how you're going to get those answers. That's how you're going
Mm.
to get at least ideas, on what you can do. So I would say that's the necessity of it. And that's why it's important, again, in the face of all this, not to retreat or retract your engagement. It means to engage even more and
Mm.
to make sure you stay plugged into things that are going to inspire, and keep that creativity going.
Man, wow, you all have made me think of a bunch of different things. One, first and foremost, you can't be from Detroit and not like music, or not be
Right.
tapped into whatever
That's
the
right.
local music is, or music as a form of expression. Like you can't be from Detroit and not find your space somewhere, whether it's, and we were talking offline a little bit about Motown, whether it's Motown or electronic music or hip hop, or Omari talking about poetry. Like, many people don't know that the Detroit poetry uh, landscape is like that, and just don't hear about it maybe so far, so much on the national, or national news or anything like that. But it's like that, and so. You made me think about something when you were talking, and we've often heard that Motown was the soundtrack of the civil rights movement. Like, Motown music was the soundtrack of the civil rights movement. I want to uh, take that and run with it a little bit. What, do you see, or how do you see your creation, whether it be poetry or music or DJing or whatever other ways you like to create? How do you see your, and this is to either one of you, how do you see your creative process, or how do you see what you create as a liberatory practice?
Hmm. You want to take that one first, Nick, or you?
Go ahead.
So for me, I write all kind of poetry from social justice to comedic to erotic, and all of those I try to put a message in,
Mhm.
right? Or you might say, well, how do you put a message in an erotic poem? Well, there's lessons about love, there's lessons about appreciation, there's lessons on how to write erotic poetry without being vulgar
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
pornographic. Um, but first and foremost, as I started as a poet and as I die as a poet, will always be to be a messenger for change, especially as it relates to social justice. Um, so I'm always tapped into writing in a way that um, talks about freedom, talks about injustice, um, talks about trauma, but doesn't lean all the way on trauma for credibility, which unfortunately is a very trend that's going on in poetry right now. Uh, Even if I write a piece that's about trauma, I want to end it with a solution or a shining light, something to that effect. So I'm always, when I'm writing, I'm always looking for that light, right? I'm always looking for that light to shine, that light to provide, that light to uplift. Um, and some of my poems are more effective at that than others, but that's always the goal. So um, that is central to who I am as an artist and who I am as a person. I come from an Underground Railroad family, North Buxton, Ontario. You know, so that's in my
Wow.
veins, it's in my blood. You know, uh, and I'll always be that.
Love that. Love that.
Yeah, I think when I think of, liberation, I feel like, too many times, or the majority of times, what's preventing that is the individual, not necessarily an external thing, meaning and I go back to kind of what I was saying earlier, in the face of challenges, they say there's three reactions, right? Fight, flight, or freeze. And I feel like the folks in the freeze and flight category, to me, I don't know if there's ever been a study done on it, but represent a significant portion. And those are the folks that need um, that creative, that creative connection. Those are the folks that need to stay plugged in because they need that little push because they have frozen or they have decided to retreat. And so it requires, to me, maybe something external to kind of try to turn that around because their initial reaction, is not to do that. And so I think, that's where, I think about, the songs I play or the example I set out there as far as what can be done in certain spaces that folks would not feel. Songs I may play in the club and like, well, why'd you do that? That's not a, and I'm like, well, I mean, I give people a little bit of what they want and some of what they need.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And, people have kind of known me for that because I've tried to strike that balance. But yeah, I think, because that example shows people, it can be a little different than what I perceive. I would perceive there have been a roadblock. You can't do that. Well, yes, you can. And here's an example. And so it's those types of um, representations in a creative process that need to stay out there again for those folks who tend to retreat in the face of a challenge, who tend to, freeze in place, not be able to take any
Mhm.
action in the face of a challenge. Those are the folks you really want to reach uh,
Mhm.
in a creative process because 9 times out of 10, again, that liberation is more about a person holding themselves back from what they could do, thinking, depending on how they're reacting to a particular challenge.
Mhm. Nick, I can say this. I know I've said it to you before, but I'll say it again. I grew up in Detroit too, right? And so I was always around a lot of DJs. My brother was a DJ. When I was coming up, Direct Drive was a big group that did parties and stuff around the city. All type of guys. I throw out all type of names. And so I was always around a lot of DJs. And I was just thinking, man, I've been knowing you for about 25 years, man. We've been close. And so you're the first one of all the DJs I've known that just had a variety of music, a variety of international music, a variety of music as you talk about to play what people need, what people want to hear. And what I always saw was that music brought people together.
Mhm.
That music brought people together and it spoke to their needs, whatever the crowd was, their needs, their cultural needs, their to tap into their experience and their history. I mean, it was just amazing. And so I always saw that, though I didn't name it as that. I see that as a liberatory thing, liberation, because what music can do for people. Um, I also thought about too, and I'll ask you this just as a follow-up, quick follow-up. I thought about you as principal at the school, and I thought about wondering what ways does your leadership also and the way you lead create liberation for teachers and people who work with you? How does it inspire them to work outside the box and not be confined by a certain way of teaching or a certain way of being? What can you say about that and how you intentionally lead in the school?
Yeah, it's been a huge challenge, and
Yeah.
I would say, the top priority, I'd imagine of any leader, but me in particular, is juggling that, maybe not juggling, walking that fine line between the messages that teachers receive, say from central office,
Yeah.
from curriculum specialists about what needs to be done, also making sure that the joy of teaching is still in there, that teachers still have a way to express themselves and who they are without feeling confined or restricted. And what I found is that looks different for every teacher. And it's about taking the time to have conversations with teachers to elevate and lift up the way they integrate who they are into the practice while also being able to satisfy, say, the standards and objectives that are
Mhm.
required for them to impart with the kids. And that's not an easy thing to do, particularly as a younger teacher,
Mhm.
is to figure out, how can I be myself? This is who I am. This is so that I make it, the teacher X experience. Um, and it's unique to me and it's something that the kids can connect with,
Yeah.
right? Because it's not the curriculum that the kids are connecting with, it's the person who's delivering it that they connect with first.
Yeah.
And once that's been established, then that creates the lane for whatever it is you want to impart to
Mhm.
them because you got them.
Mhm.
So similar to DJing, right? If you in the groove in the pocket and everybody's rocking with you, then that's when you can now take them to, oh, well, how about this? And maybe I'll drop a little bit of that in
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
and go right back to something you like.
Yeah.
That's when you can take those chances when you've
Yeah.
establish that relationship. So, that's what I preach to the teachers is relationship first. But also, yes, managing kind of the other expectations that comes with the curriculum they've been given. So yeah, it's definitely a challenge because, like I said, everybody's unique. They have their story. They have the things that work in their favor in that process, and they also have the things that, are kind of challenges in that process for them. And it's up to me to know my people well enough to be able to help guide them through that process. Because I'm not here to say I have the recipe for everybody, because I've learned a lot about myself in the process and about the people I work with.
Yeah.
But I guess I would take it back to a T-shirt I saw. Some parent came to the office the other day, and as soon as I saw the T-shirt, I was like, "That's exactly what I need to see today." And the T-shirt said, "Grow through what you go through."
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that, and I can see Naomi, my colleagues Naomi and Aaron shaking their head as two former principals themselves. I certainly can appreciate that as an educator, man. Thanks for sharing that, Naomi,
I,
Aaron. I
I
saw your heads.
I mean, I think listening to both Amari and Nick, for me, I hear this, through line of how important it is to give a lot of individual attention and be responsive to individual needs for the collective good, right? And I think we lose that a lot. Like, so I think there's this battle in this country and in our reality of, are you an individualist, capitalist, selfish person, or are you a collective minded, communal person. And I don't think that those things are mutually exclusive. I believe that we have to be responsive. And what Nick, you just described is kind of the way to do it. Like, how do you honor and create enough space for everybody to truly express themselves for who and how they are, understanding that they are a piece of a collective, a quilt or a matrix that comes together for the movement, in your case, movement of a school, in society's case, movement of our world together. And I think that we have to be really leaning into this message that both of you brought forward, right? So the creation process is individual, but the reaction is like what Aaron said, Omari, if people are hanging on to your words that you don't even remember, it's because you resonated with something in them that reminded them that they are part of a collective, even though it might have resonated with them individually. And I remember, so for our audience listening, Nick and I also go back 25 years because Spencer, Nick, and I all were educators together. And I always tell this story, even now to this day. But one of my best lessons as someone in education was observing Nicholas's Brown's classroom. At that time, I was a curriculum coordinator and I had to go and give feedback around like what's happening in the classrooms. And Nick's classroom, you entered and kids were doing all sorts of things. And they're all moving in different spaces and they all were functioning and learning in different ways, but they had a cohesiveness and a connectedness as a classroom community that I couldn't find in any other classroom. And I learned a tremendous lesson, which is if you give enough people creative space to be who they are, they will all chip in for the common good. But when you jam down somebody's throat just a way to be, or a way to react, or a type of music to listen to, or a type of literature to read and recite, or whatever it is, that's when we start to stifle our own creativity and our own liberation. So I'm just really grateful for both of you for highlighting that in your responses the way you did.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
by the
even
way,
think about, oh, go.
Nick, happy anniversary. Tomorrow is our anniversary of our group
Are
our
you
poetry group,
serious?
Third Eye Open
Wow.
Poetry Collective. Yeah,
Wow.
the
Nice.
date creeps up on us.
Wow. That's amazing.
That is.
That's amazing. And Naomi,
Yeah.
the universe, right?
That
It's also
is.
The
Malcolm
u-
X's birthday
Yes.
and the founding date of the Last Poets.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Naomi, I know you're gonna you want to roll into something. I thought about what you were saying. I thought about you, Omari, as a poet. you really have to feel, right? You have to feel the times. You have to feel what's needed. You have to
Mhm.
feel um, what you're offering, to the world, to the community, you have to feel that, and that's why I know that your poetry resonates. And so, in a sense, and when you walk into the room, there has to be a sixth sense of the audience, a sixth sense of where you are, the environment, and all that. So I just want to amplify that too. And it spans in both what you and Nick are talking about, and to go in and just feel that and create from that space. Um, you know what I mean? And then to get back for them to reciprocate um, by their enjoyment of what you're doing, what you're creating is what you get back. So I just want to acknowledge that too. Um, yeah, yeah.
You mentioned your anniversary, and this is like we could not have planned it. So,
Yeah.
so everybody knows we're real transparent. We do have like small planning meetings just to kind of have an idea of what the podcast will do, but we're often kind of rolling on the fly because things just life's right, and we have to figure things out. And uh, the two of you together was magic, and the fact that your
Yes.
anniversary is coming up is crazy because
Yes.
I was going to lead into a commentary about one of my first exposures to the brilliance of creation and using the power of music and spoken word together was the cassette tape that Nick shared with me of your group, Third Eye Open, all these
Yeah.
years ago. And I was like, this is amazing. How is this not on everybody's like listening track or playlist? Because it really impacted me as a social justice person from birth. These guys all know who and how I've been wired. It's in my blood. It's very rare to find that in a creative spoken way, the way that you all capture that. So I love that this all came together without us planning it, that this is your anniversary.
Yeah.
So tell us and tell the listeners a little bit about Third Eye Open, how you all came together, and really what the purpose of that work was.
Yeah. So I used to want to be an NBA player, but my knees didn't want to be NBA players. So I always struggled to maintain a consistent regimen. So after college, um, I used to hang out at this park down on Jefferson, Irma Henderson Park, named after the Honorable Irma Henderson, our former council member here in Detroit. And I met this guy named Righteous, and we were playing ball. We would all, and it was funny because we would almost never lose when we were on the same team. So one night I used to be a bouncer and a bodyguard. I was bouncing at Maryland's on Monroe, right across from Fish Bones, downtown Detroit. And I heard there was a poetry event going on down at Chameleon Cafe, which was on the corner. And I walked away from work, let them know I'm stepping away for a minute. I'm gonna go down here and spit a poem. So I go down, and Righteous is in there, and and he does a poem, and I do a poem, and then we got close, and his girlfriend Rihanna, wife now, girlfriend at the time, was with us, and then we met some other poets, and we formed a group. And shortly after, I come to a meeting, and they announced to me that we have a new group member I didn't even know about. They didn't run you by me, Nick. I had no say in the deal, right? But I put up a little resistance. Like, I don't want none of that. I don't want no instrumentals. I want to just spit poems. So Nick and I developed a good bond. I started to really enjoy what Nick brought to the table. Um, Shortly after we had already put our first CD out, and shortly after we put our second one out. But before we put the second one out, we started getting bookings around the country at universities. So we started traveling. This is back when Nick had the real big heavy cases of albums and turntables we used to have to carry through the airport. But yeah, it was just a great experience forming a group with friends. Uh, and to this day we all have love for each other. We're not active as a group because everybody got the grown people lives going on. But when we come together, it's like no time has been lost. And it's just a beautiful history to be a part of. And our work was very much social justice oriented. And when we weren't spitting poems, we were doing stuff like raising money for Coats for Kids and, you know, feeding homeless or unhoused folks. We were doing whatever we could, whatever we had the knowledge to do. And so it wasn't just about poems, even though we performed at war rallies, anti-war rallies, all kind of places. So it's a beautiful history.
Thanks for sharing that. Nick, you want to add anything? Your memory of not joining the group without being approved.
Yeah, it was I believe I was DJing at Club Envy downtown, right across from Cobo Hall at the time.
Yeah.
And Righteous, I don't remember if Khalid was with him, but they
And
caught me
Nick
DJ.
he wasn't with us that night.
Was it just Right then? Right and maybe
No, it was the whole
or
group. Khalid wasn't with us.
all y'all were there?
Talking about Scheherazade spot? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And so yeah, they heard what I was doing for that event, and they approached me and were interested in adding that DJ element to the group. And as soon as I listened to the first CD and just heard, I was like, okay, I automatically know what this is about. And I had done back when I was in Michigan State, done some poetry events there. So, it was always a vibe I liked, just the message, the spirit of it, and it gave me freedom to express myself without necessarily have to be confined to people have to dance. It was more along the lines of what I want to do. So it was really just a match made in heaven. I couldn't have dreamt of a better opportunity. One, to be a part of a group that was in line with my beliefs and how I viewed myself wanting to engage, and also how I wanted to express myself as a DJ. And so, yeah, it was awesome. I mean, it's a time in my life I'll never forget. I grew so much, learned so much, laughed so much. Uh, it was just awesome. And so, yeah, this is just family for life.
And Nick, I felt like Ralph Tresvant when he walked in the studio and Johnny Gill was in the booth singing, and he found out Michael Bivins had made him part of the group. I was like,
And let me say, he would eventually he would let some of that aggression out a little bit. He say, "I don't want no music on this one." He would say at certain points like, I don't want music on this one.
That's amazing.
But the reason for that was I had memory issues,
Is
and
that
music
right?
cut me off sometimes.
It would distract you. Gotcha.
That's awesome.
Gotcha.
I think what's so great is that you all inspired each other, and then your music inspired countless numbers of people. And that's one of the main messages we really wanted to convey to people listening today, is that creation is inspiration and growth. And right now, so many people are stuck in reactionary mode and waiting for the next, bomb story to drop of like what next horror awaits us. And we're trying to shift people into, how do you create to inspire? How do you create to free yourself? How do you create to really connect with other people? And so really directed at both of you, but I'll start with you, Omari. What advice would you offer other people on how to channel their creative energy, especially for those who may not identify as like a creative or as an artist? Because lots of people listen, right? And lots of people are like, well, that's great, but he's an artist. Of course he's going to channel his creativity, and Nick's a creator. So what advice do you offer to people who aren't identifying themselves as artists what can they do to channel their creative energy?
Um, for me, sometimes I have to reduce my social media activity because I find that I write so much on, especially Facebook, because I'm old, and I guess I've been told by the young folks that that's where old people go to die.
Well, we're all on that same, boat with you. Yeah.
I would write so much on Facebook that I think that I didn't have much to say in the poem, you know. So I would take social media breaks, even if it's 3 or 4 days. I go out, get out into some nature. You have to continuously read, and not just the quick clickbait articles on the internet. Like do some actual research. Like read 2 or 3 books around the subject matter. You know, um, one important thing is having a group of friends that are intellectuals that you can have conversations with and get fed by,
Mhm.
you know. Um, get out and be a kid, do some kid stuff, read some
Mhm.
comic books, go play duck pin bowling, like get out, go to Dave and Buster's or whatever video game conglomerate is near you. Enjoy life, right? Enjoy life, but also be honest and vulnerable and forgiving with yourself about whatever trauma or hard times you're experiencing because you're going to write about the joy and the pain,
Mhm.
right? But you have to be, you can't be in denial of those things and you can't be just pushing those things away. You got to actually allow yourself to feel it and deal with it, right? Um, and even if you're not dealing with it, you got to allow yourself to feel it, and that'll feed into your creativity. If you get to deal with it, that's even better. If you once you get to that point, but to me, that's the remedy: is the honesty, the vulnerability, and accepting of where you are, whether it's joy or hurt, whether it's success or the bottom of failure. Uh, Life is to be written about. Life is a form of poetry that we pull from to create our internal poetry. So, but definitely read. Don't stop reading, and don't just read from one perspective. Don't just read one thing. Like get out and do like find more. Find more. There's a whole world of life and information out
I love it and laugh. I love this part about find a group of intellectual friends because selfishly, if you want the real reason behind this podcast, Aaron, Spence, and I just need time to talk to each other
there.
Yeah, right, right. That's
and
Without a doubt.
commiserate and
that's
really have that group of people. Like we can really bounce ideas off of each other
right. No
now.
doubt. No doubt.
Yeah.
We were just
And in the
talking, right? We're
process,
like,
we
we need
might
to
do
do a
something good.
podcast.
Right. Yeah. We might create something.
No
Nick, how
doubt.
about you? What advice would you give?
for y'all.
Yeah, no, I mean, O said it. Take inventory of your space, right? And make sure that whatever your lane is, that it exists within your surroundings. So I personally always felt that everybody has creation in some aspect, whether you're creative with words, whether you're creative with writing, whether you're creative with cooking, whether you're creative with gardening, whether you're creative with music, whether you're creative with, I mean, there's a whole litany of life things that I think everybody has something. Maybe they haven't found it yet, but usually when you visit most people's houses, it tells a story, right? Or you see kind of who they hang with, or the things around them. I think a lot of folks have tapped into it by adulthood in a way, whether it's creative athletically. I mean, I could go on and on. I think O said it best is in those moments though when that trauma hits you, when you get punched in the face, right, by life. Um, do you retreat? Do you then like do I stop playing music now? Right? Do I not listen to it as much? Do I just kind of get into a depressed state and now, I've taken that life-giving thing out of the equation for me? I think that's really the key piece of advice is the time to think most about creation is when you are in your worst moment.
Mm.
Mm,
And that's like if people could have like a billboard, in their house for when that moment hits and you look at that thing, you're like, oh yeah, I'm going through it right now, but I
mm,
gotta remember,
mm,
don't stop playing music, don't stop cooking, don't stop writing, don't stop, playing sports, don't stop, whatever your thing is, don't stop planting, whatever your thing is, or don't stop building. Like keep pushing through even in the worst moment. It'll help you get out, and who knows what you'll create, because a lot of times it's in the face of those challenges that we create our best our best work. So it's remembering not to shut it off when that bad moment hits. Man, stuff is messed up in the country, Trump and tariffs and all that. I don't feel like listening to music. I don't feel like cooking. I don't feel like, that's when, or my relationship is going south. I'm just going to stay in my room and just watch TV or just kind of, you know, be depressed. Like those are the moments when you have to remind yourself to not remove the creative energy from your space. So always taking inventory of that. And sure, you'll have a moment, right? Or moments when the initial shock hits of whatever it is. But then it's like, all right, well, now let me find my way back to my center. Let me find my way back to that creative thing. So don't just stay out there wherever life hits you and knocked you. Start taking the steps back once you kind of, come to and shake out the cobwebs, and make sense of what just hit you. So, all right, well, let me get back to this thing. And so I think that would be my advice is find your way back to creation, understand and anticipate life is going to send blows your way that will knock you away from it. But make sure, it's kind of like that bungee cord. You get knocked out there, but then spring right back to where you were. I think that to me is the key.
And it gives you that autonomy and control that you
yeah,
talked about before
yeah.
too, right? Like
Nick,
so
yeah,
powerful.
yeah. I just want to say this before you go. Nick, I'm so proud of my little brother, as I'll call my little
Hmm.
brother Nick, you know what I mean? And always Omari, we still do work. We'll be doing it this week. We'll be creating some more stuff this week. But when I think about Nick, I think about our journey, and I think about what you just said too, Nick, that we both have seen each other punched in the face over the years, bad.
Yep.
We both seen each other really bad. And then we both played a whole lot. You know, we used to play basketball at the school all the time. And I'll tell you right now, I'll be transparent. If he played 18 games, he always won 10 and I won 8. I won, he would win 10, I win 9. We went to Cedar Point one year and every little game we played, he won. Until I found that one last one. I wasn't giving up. It was whack-a-mole. I was whacking those little. It's the last minute I won. I was so happy, it's like I was ready to go. And then we were drive. I remember driving somewhere, Nick. I know you remember this. I think we were going to Chicago or somewhere, and you put on some music for me, Immortal Technique,
Yeah.
and I almost busted out the car because I had never heard them.
You ready to set something on fire?
Man, I was ready to blow. I was ready to just that music, Immortal Technique had me. And I've never been the same. Never been the same since. I am proud. Just wanted to say I'm proud of you, man. I'm grateful for you both, and I am just privileged to know you both. And Omari, the work we do and we create all the time, and we're gonna continue to create, particularly in this area of gender justice and social justice and the work we do together. So I'm just grateful. I'm grateful, y'all. Just wanted to say that.
I love a
Likewise.
love fest. This is
Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah, yeah.
And,
May
and,
I
and
say, I
Omari,
still recycle one of your phrases to this day, living the question, which is kind of baked into that whole
Yes.
bring back once you get knocked out there. Like,
Yeah,
you go through that live the question moment.
that's right.
which means figuring it out, staying engaged, staying plugged in. And that, that was a huge lesson. I know you know what I talk about when I reference challenges,
Yeah.
what I've gone through. And, you've been a big part of, a lot of stuff I've said here, have come from our dialogue and engagement
Mhm.
over the years. So, yeah, thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you, man.
Awesome. Aaron, you're gonna pop in?
I was going to say something, I'm being facetious, but Omari, when you said you were a poet, I believed you. But when I knew, you said the word, I don't know if you said the life is a poem or world is a poem, and we have to let that allow the poem inside us to write the poem inside of us, or let I didn't write it down when you said it, but like that's
Yep.
when I knew.
Was
Hmm.
led.
Like, man, that okay, that guy,
Yeah.
it just when you're a creative person, it emanates from you at all times. And so I just appreciate you all sharing your knowledge around the subject and your processes and what you go through and what you've been through is it's amazing.
Omari, would you be able to grace us with one of your pieces?
Oh yeah, sure, sure. So we were talking about getting punched in the face.
Hmm.
And I'm currently, life has been punching me in the face. Um, Dealing with a major health issue to the point where I have to find a kidney now.
Hmm.
Uh, and so I was hospitalized for a while. And I was thinking about the poets around the country that I know and love from my travels, because they were writing to me and calling me. And so I wanted to write a message to them. So this is a message to the poet, but I think if everybody listens, it's a message to everyone. Someone told me that you write your best poems on your deathbed. I've always wanted to be a better poet. At one point, I think I was even ready to die for it. As I write this poem, I'm dazed into a hospital stay in which they say that I have a low chance of surviving. At this moment, I feel like saying, forget those better poems. I'm just trying to live. These days, my kidneys have become a brittle metaphor for a matador who has lost a few steps and was waving a red flag at more bullhorns than he could grab alone. I'm I'm living in a metaverse of ailments already transversed by both of my parents. That's kind of poetic. Maybe, possibly not. Maybe that lives outside of what we consider poetry. There may be no magic in walking in every single footprint of your ancestors, and I can't help but submit to that. Life has never given me trigger warnings, only sudden explosions that take turns, tearing my skin into dusty rags or breaking my heart into parts of obsidian vessels that nestle themselves at the edges of my most vital parts. I am the successor of several sudden pentameters. Sometimes I'm a series of contrapuntals, of conundrums. I'm a poet and a poem who was fighting hard to not become a haiku. And I'm sorry if that felt like an abrupt ending to a poem, like the countdown to my life dramatically lives in 17 more sardonic syllables. But now, when I think about that time, I was told that we write our best poems on our deathbed. I thought about all of my friends who are poets, who change and save lives, who build and reconstruct perspectives. I can only think that I hope that I never hear you writing your best poems of your life. In fact, I implore you, digress, fall off, write your worst fucking poems, be less vulnerable, and just cop out. It's probably painfully obvious that I'm speaking nonsense because I know this plea will fall on deaf ears. Because when we write with every fiber of our life. When we stand on stage, we are not afraid of bullets or flying daggers, our pens, our swords, and our force fields, even when they are also bloodletting and unstitching our wounds in the name of honesty. We stand with our chest out, even when we shake like fault lines or black mothers' tears, kneeling next to chalk lines. Many of us would rather die on stage than an age progressed health issue at a late age and a stage where dementia has consumed every poet device that we ever remember to write in. We aren't here to live quietly in a world of injustice where the poetry within us is a ticking cancer in a crimson chalice time capsule in the cavity below our necks. No, my friends, I know you. I know you will write great poems as this passes by. Your essence of thought will illuminate the ceilings and skies. Your syllables will become symbols of complexity, made so simple to pull a woman from abuse or a boy from a self prepared noose. So just forget my plea. Write your best poems to death for the love of our lives. Besides, from what I hear in so many of your poems, many of us have already been in our deathbeds a bunch of times. Thank you.
Wow.
Pause.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You've left me speechless, Omari, and that's a feat. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Thank you for sharing that
Yeah, thank
that
you.
creation.
Thank you for giving platform.
Yeah.
Platforms are so important.
Yeah.
And I was having a hard time getting my phone to scroll. I was struggling like, what's the screen move? What's the next line?
Oh, wow. Well, when you said it was for poets and then really for anyone listening, I mean, that really is it. We can't allow what is inside of us to stay trapped in there. We are meant to speak. We are meant to use our voice. We are meant to create and flow from ourselves to other people and receive back from others as well. So thank you for that reminder. And thank you for offering that to our listeners as well, because it's a necessary and much much desired message that I
No
think a
doubt.
lot of people need to hear. So
No, no doubt.
we are
I was just gonna say thank you for being honest and being
yeah,
vulnerable and real. That as humans, it's I don't say not often. It is often that we come by it, but it's refreshing when we do.
Yeah.
mm,
Yeah. And it shows y'all that there's some things that are so profound that all you have to do is pause and take some silence.
Yes.
And we don't just move on. We just take a moment to let it sink in and
yeah.
silence. And that deserves some silence and a pause. So um,
And multiple rewinds to
blessings.
listen to it
Yes.
over and
Yes.
over
Oh,
again.
absolutely.
No doubt. No doubt. No doubt. No doubt.
Absolutely.
We'd love to invite you both to offer any kind of closing thoughts you have for our guests around this idea of creation and you know, really confronting your own and their own liberatory creation in these times. Any closing thoughts you have?
Nick, you want to go ahead?
Sure. Yeah, my closing thought is pretty much, the theme of what I said. In the face of challenges, in the face of trauma, in the face of difficult times, um, creation is one of the keys to help us push through, come up with solutions. Um, and again, if you identify as a freeze or a flight type of person who reacts to that, then it would mean make taking intentional steps to just surround yourself in that space, to surround yourself among the people, the community that is going to generate and help bring that life. And that's one thing I would say I'm happy to see. Um, a lot of the reaction is people creating more spaces, people being more intentional about generating more ideas, more music. I'm hearing things that I hadn't heard in previous iterations. So I do feel like energy is building, even in what we're going through at a national level. But even when I look at community wise, working in Southwest Detroit, for example, or even in the school, as we face challenges, more and more people have been, wanting to do more, to create ideas, to generate strategies. And I think a lot of that is coming from just the fact that when I listen to music, for example, um, I remember rap at one point, was talked about, it's kind of like the news reporter saying what is, not necessarily what could be. But I found a lot more examples now of people talking about what could be, what should be, what shouldn't be happening, and so that has been encouraging, at least in the music space, and even just outside of rap, just music in general. And so I'm happy to see that that spirit is alive, and yeah, we're gonna keep pushing forward, and we're gonna get through, and we're gonna be better for it.
Yeah. And I will follow up by saying that open your mind to what creativity can be and can look like. Like this episode of this podcast is one big improv of creativity. Um, and the beauty of that is that it is a collaborative effort. So sometimes your greatest creativity comes out of collaborative projects. Um, and then you grow as a creator and then you go into your individual projects. It happens like that sometimes. So don't be turned off to not being able to identify almost anything and everything as creative, because almost anything and everything is. Um, but zone into what you felt the most comfortable with in your creation, and tap into that over and over and develop your creative path. And you'll look up one day and you'll say, oh wow, now I'm having my own fashion shows. I started off just doing t-shirts with a friend, you know. Um, now I'm doing a web series, and it started out with just a little skit I did for a friend's album, you know. So be very open to the poetry that's all around us all the time. It's in us, it's around us, and it comes from our friends and family. It comes from television. It comes from everything. But just be open to it.
And there's no better time to do it. I mean,
Yeah.
think like 20 years ago,
Right now.
right? How voices were limited, how access was limited. And now look at us now, podcasting, YouTube channels, access to be able to get into DJing now, to be able to get into all sorts of things that back, when we were younger, you know, always looked like exclusive spaces, or the channels we had to go through were narrower. And now all that has exploded. So there's no better,
Expensive.
yeah, there's no better time to be creative. There's no, and it's only going to get better, and it's a beautiful thing to see. So just being on this podcast is a perfect example of what the possibilities are out there. And there's enough people on the planet where everybody can partake and everybody can get an audience. There's enough out here for everybody.
Yeah. Thank
Naomi,
you for this today.
you're muted from.
Thank you. Sorry. Wanted to make sure my crazy dog in the background wasn't weighing out your amazing advice. I think those are amazing words of advice for our listeners. I took them to heart myself, remembering that every moment is an option for creation. And I just, gosh, I love that, because we can get caught up in the mundane tasks of life, thinking that we're not creating. But if we just reframe every single thing we do as some form of creation, we start to generate more and more positive energy towards lots of other creative outlets. So I just absolutely love that. And a lot of us are in search of happiness, right? And we're looking for something. You both referred to external things creating or causing trauma, happiness, right? But I think what I take away from this is this notion that the best way to find happiness is to create it, right? It's not to look for it somewhere else. It's really to create it. And so I just want to thank you both from the deepest part of my heart, but from us collectively as a show for all that you've given us, your wisdom, your time, your talents, your creativity to inspire us. And I'll leave it to Aaron to kind of wrap us up.
Awesome. Thank you both. So as always, we like to end our show on a positive note, that something that our readers, our listeners can take with them. You've already given them that. You've given them something they can take with you, but we like to just cap it off with something that they can take with them.
All right. So this says, we all derive from the same source. There's no mystery about the origin of things. We are all part of creation. All kings, all poets, all musicians. We have only to open up, only to discover what is already there. All kings, all poets, all musicians. We have only to open up, only to discover what is already there. Thank you both. I think you reminded everybody here, including us, that is already there.
Absolutely.
That is already there. Nick.
All right. Well, until next time, stay balanced, keep healing, and keep evolving, everyone. Thank you
Peace and
much.
love, everyone.
Peace and
Peace
love,
and love.
everyone.
Peace.
This episode of Endless Evolution is brought to you by the No Harm Organization, uplifting wholeness and humanity. Our featured music is Humanity by Lava Laru.